looking at the best of the best from Tarkir Dragonstorm, the must-have cards for Commander.
I'm Mia, and I need a haircut.
I'm BZ. I have way more gray hairs at this stage in my life than I thought I would. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, sponsored by Card Kingdom, and this is a special sponsorship that you shouldn't skip because there's a new discount for the month of April. You can save 15% off of supplies, magic supplies on Card Kingdom if you use code BZB Day, because this is, of course, my birthday month.
No. It's also my birthday month. Use Mia B Day. It's a head-to-head competition, and you know that I'm your favorite. So if you like tokens and all this cool stuff, you should use my code because I'm the better NN.
BZB Day is the only code.
No.
They're on screen. BZB Day versus Mia B Day. We'll know who you like better.
But you could also use both of them if you use them on separate orders. 15%.
15%? That's a real discount. Very real discount. Anyway, we're also sponsored by Dragon Shield because they have the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you use code
NERDS,
we switch this, you could save 5% of your real money tax dollars on your entire order. That's separate from one of the other coolest things Dragon Shield's doing, which is Nitpicking Nerds sleeves. They are finally available. If you buy them, you're getting a nice discount on what would have been custom sleeves. You are also getting the perfect tuned images, the crisp images, and we're going to get kickback, and it supports everyone at the same time.
If you love Amber or our logo, you should get the sleeves, and if not, Amber will cry. We're also sponsored by Moxfield, but not now, a lot later. Settle down. And we're also sponsored by Patreon because our lights are on. Thank you guys so much for giving us money there because we could give you awesome, fresh content in return.
Like this, the best cards from Tarkir Dragonstorm. This, to me, is one of the most hyped Magic sets of all time.
Oh my god, yes.
I think, getting into this, I think the cards are not busted from this set, but they're extremely exciting, which is exactly, I would so much rather have extremely exciting cards that make me want to build 5 different decks than like the most boring, stapley, busted cards, you know?
I love this set. I think it's awesome. As someone who really loves 3 colors myself, I think this is great, but it also brings fresh new twists, whether that's like giving stuff to your Tasigur deck, which didn't have as much stuff recently, or giving more stuff to like Mardu tokens that I love. I think there is something in here to enjoy for everyone, and I think that a lot of decks are getting cool synergy pieces.
Yeah, this set's awesome, so we couldn't include many cards. This is only a top 10, but we do have a couple honorable mentions, maybe some that we'll fight over. Do you want to go over the first one?
The first one is going to be Maelstrom of the Spirit Dragon. This is going to be a land that can tap for any color if you're summoning dragons and stuff, and I think that's going to be super cool for the Dragons deck.
Basically, this is like one of the most slam dunk cards in the set. It's a card I'm going to go get like 3 of and just hold on to in case I want to build dragon stuff. Because I know that this is going to do the Inventors Fair thing, where like 5 years from now it's worth $1 million, and you're like, oh, I remember when that was a bulk rare. So I'm going to pick up a few. I think it's really notable, but it's just too specific to make a top 10 of the whole set. We're also including the Commander cards, so there's a lot of cards at play here. Next one is Voice of Victory. This card is sick, but I think it's maybe more tuned for the CEDH Bracket 4 stuff. And it's not like an overall bomb or staple, but it is a good card. It does have other text on it, which I thought was cool.
This guy comes down. He's going to say your opponents can cast spells during your turn, and he also makes tokens when he attacks. I really love Mobilize. I think it's super fun. The next one's going to be Anok Strike Leader. If you guys have seen our previous videos, this is one of my favorites. He will make so much power immediately when he attacks. He's going to make tokens for each of your opponents that are swinging in and attacking, but also they stick around. Or if you don't attack with him, you can also attack with your commander and still trigger his ability.
Then it has like the Selfless Spirit text for tokens. Some people, I think, were misreading this card. It doesn't mean that you have to attack with this and your commander. It is either or both, so that it doesn't, it just has to be worded this way, so like attacking with this and your commander doesn't give you 2 triggers. You only ever get 1. It's this, your commander, or this and your commander. Next is a card I think should be in the top 10, and I'm going to fight Mia because I think I don't know what to call this, the village cycle. They're not all called villages, but they all kind of are villages. Anyway, there are 5 lands that are untapped with the opposite colors of the wedge basics if you have those. And they have all unique, cute little abilities. None of them are game-breaking. I don't think the blue one is as good as everyone is hyping it up to be. But I do think they're all nifty, solid, and they're good vegetables. And I think they should be in the top 10, but I'll let you...
I think they're perfectly fine. I think that if you want to do your monocolor Field of the Dead base, or if you're doing anything like that, like, they're fine for what they are. They can come in and tap, but I think that they're not as universal as people might think because it might be harder for them to come in untapped, and also their abilities are, I'd say, kind of okay. They range from I really wouldn't pay for that to maybe if I have some extra mana lying around. I think they're so fine. I think that if you're trying to do Field of the Dead, if you're trying to put a little bit of spice and utility into your lands, they're okay. But they're not lands I'm running to. They're not, the Boseiju, the channel lands.
No, they're not.
They're not like War Room. I don't know. I think their abilities are just very expensive for what they are, and I don't think that they can crack the top 10 with how much spice we actually have from the set and the Commander decks, which there were 5 new ones and all the new cards with it.
I'll tell you this right now, though. I think they're about as good as the Castle cycle from Throne. If you want to know where my exact thoughts are, they're basically, to me, on par with that. A lot of them have the same abilities as some of the different colors, but keep that in mind. I think those are good cards either way. But now we're into the official top 10. Mia, what's number 10?
Number 10 is Thunder of Unity. It's Mardu for a Saga. Chapter 1, you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. Chapters 2 and 3 says, whenever a creature you control enters this turn, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I think this is awesome, even though it is 3 colors, which makes it harder to play in a lot of decks. I think that with its first ability, you're paying a little bit extra for the Night's Whisper type effect, and that's okay. But 2 and 3, because I don't think this is a game-breaking, game-ending thing, I think it'll stick around for a very long period of time, and getting those effects for 2 extra turns means if you're spitting out tokens, even if you get a few pings here and there, that is going to be dealing damage to the entire table, and I think that is an awesome effect to have.
I would say, if I had to do some math, the average number of turns this stays in play is 3, because I don't think that this is, unless you have some kind of onboard ridiculous thing or they know to specifically fear this card, I don't know if it's going to be the target of too much removal. And even if it is, you front load the value, which I like. If this was switched, I would like it a lot less. But we get to front load the card advantage, so I get my card back, and I'm even up a card now. So if you kill it, it's not the end of the world for me. And, oh man, it's just so much damage. I was playing this in Limited, and it was dealing like 6 damage over the course of its life. It's just a really strong card. And if you can flicker it or get it back, it is a permanent that costs 3. So, like, you can Savine's Reclamation this back. That seems ridiculously strong. It feels like, even though it is 3 colors, it feels like a staple in most Mardu decks now. I mean, Mardu has a lot of options for card draw and stuff, but this still feels amazing.
I'm going to be replacing, like, the Night's Whispers in Edgar with Thunder of Unity.
Right.
I think that it's awesome. I don't really switch around non-creature stuff in there that often, and I'm never touching the vampires for the most part, unless a better vampire comes out. But I think that this really has a home in there. You're just spinning out tokens left and right, and I think that, anywhere you're playing, like, Agate Instigator and stuff, if you can also play these 3 colors, it's going to be a slam dunk in there.
Yeah, this seems better than Sign and Blood. This seems better than Night's Whisper, better than Painful Truths, way better than Read the Bones. Don't even consider Read the Bones anymore. We got 85 things better than that. So if you're playing Mardu, you probably want a Mardu Saga. Next, number 9, another Mardu card. We're back to back. Will of the Mardu is 2 and a white instant. Choose one. If you choose your commander, if you have your commander, you choose both. Create a number of 1/1 red warriors equal to the number of creatures target player controls, or Will of the Mardu deals damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures you control. I think this is the best of the Will cycle. The Will cycle is fine. I'm happy with most of them, but I don't think they're like busted cards. This is the only one that I think you don't even really care if you have your commander, which is great. It's also the cheapest. It's also an instant, at 3 mana instant, and it's kind of says if you have the biggest board, double your board and make all of that 1/1s. If someone else has a crazy board, boom, surprise, here's 6 or 12 warrior tokens, and obviously, when you have your commander, which is a fair amount of the time, you also get to kill the best thing in the field.
I think the sorcery text on the other wills definitely knock them down in the listing to the point where they're not on this list. But Will of the Mardu being an instant, and the way that it's just worded in general, I love the fact that it either doubles your board or helps you just have an army in a can if someone else is doing really, really well. I really like that flexibility and the fact that it acts as a removal spell immediately. It's not like you have to have this board. It's like, okay, no, we'll supplement you with stuff and we'll kill the best thing, and all you have to do is have your commander out, which we're trying to do most of the time anyways. I think Will of the Mardu is great, and I am usually holding up 3 mana for a removal spell to begin with, but the flexibility of also being able to build my board is so nice.
Yeah, I mean, if you just play your commander on turn 3, and then you pass, and on turn 4 you play this, you can very realistically get 4 tokens and kill the best thing in play. That's great for 3 mana, and this feeds into like the green-white tokens or the red-white go-wide strategy of like end step. Make a ton of creatures that you weren't expecting, untap, overrun, kill you. This just contributes to another drop in the bucket of that, and I think this is with like Grand Crescendo, Secure the Wastes, Benevolent Offering to a lesser extent, Call of Copper Coats, March of the Multitudes. Now we've just got like this critical mass, and you can expect these decks to almost always make their armies at the end step.
And despite the fact that his Will of the Mardu, this is a mono white card too. Well, mono white weenies can play this card, or if you're going like black white tokens, it doesn't really matter. And I love the flexibility of that. I think it's great.
And it goes really well with Thunder of Unity.
Yeah, I think it does too. Up next is a card that you're very excited for, and I am expecting to see in Balmor a lot. It's number 8, it's Frostcliff Siege. 1 blue-red for an enchantment. When it enters, you choose Jeskai or Teamer. Jeskai says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card. Teamer gives +1/+0 and trample and haste to your entire team. I think that when you're punching really big, especially in those like Izzity plus spell slinging, but you also want to punch. There's a lot of that coming out with the Jeskai deck. There's a lot of that coming out with the Balmors, and then also being able to draw cards from this for 3 mana. I think that's awesome.
This feels like one of the best 3 mana haste enablers that I've ever seen. I think it's better than Fires of Yavimaya. It might even be better than Teamer Ascendancy. Honestly, the trample's huge. It's better than the Rhythm of the Wild, I think. It's also in different colors, so like the Teamer decks can still play this, but this unlocks a better haste enabler for like blue-red and for Jeskai, because I have never been super excited with what is it, Fervor, which just does nothing. It just says they have haste. Rising of the Day is okay. It's a budget card. Hammer of Peripherals, like none of those are mind-blowing. And this is just the Teamer half. We're already like upgrading all these cards. It's just a Teamer half. If you have a bunch of creatures already in play and they can connect, you just play the Jeskai half and you draw up to 3 cards per turn cycle, unless you have Double Strike, in which case you're drawing even more. But the cap per player per creature without Double Strike is 1. So that's 3. But if for some reason you had 3 creatures with Double Strike, that's 6.
I think it's pretty interesting because this is kind of color shifted. I would expect to see this in like a, red-green plus type enchantment, but seeing it in red-blue, I think makes it a little bit down on the list because it's a little harder to play, because it's not like I can swap this out with all the places I'm playing Fires of Yavi and Rise of the Day and stuff. It just makes it tougher. I can't put this in Roxanne, unfortunately. It would slap there though.
It would absolutely slap.
But this is a very cool card overall. I love the modes, and for that price, I think it's, as you mentioned, it's just upgraded fires, upgraded haste enablers in general. Trample's so big in Commander now.
Trample is very relevant. I think that it's good at a lot of points in the game too, because if you don't have creatures, you're going to play the Teamer side and prepare for them and make them that much better, so you don't have to wait for them to do anything. And if you have creatures, you just play the Jeskai side and you start drawing cards. And just like Moxfield.com, because if you're wondering how much card draw is in your Commander deck, Moxfield will tell you, because you can tag and sort and customize all of your cards. So you can say, oh, Treasure Cruise, Teamer Ascendancy, Frostcliff Siege, those are all card draw. You can tag them card draw, and then you can go, how many card draw spells are in my Narset deck? And it'll say 6, BZ. And I go, wow, thanks, Moxfield.
I like the idea that BZ talks to Moxfield, but Moxfield is so great. If you wanted to put this card or any card in your deck, but you have 5,000 decks lying around and you go, I don't know where I put that card. You type it into the search bar and it'll go, it put it in this deck, the BZ Carador deck, one of 5.
Where was
and you
I
go,
playing
thank
Fervor?
you.
Where was I playing Fervor? Search Fervor. You say, oh, you're playing it in your 5-color Kenrith deck? Well, cut that crap and get Frostcliff Siege in there. Moving to number 7, it is the first of 2 Planeswalkers that are going to appear on this list. Spoiler alert to no one. This is Elspeth Stormslayer. She does a lot. 3 white for a Planeswalker with 5 loyalty. If 1 or more tokens will be created under your control, you get twice that many. That's her static. That's always true as long as you have her. +1, create a 1/1 soldier, which is fake because you actually are going to get 2 soldiers because of her static. 0, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And we misread this, I think, in our full hour-long set review. It says your creatures gain flying until your next turn. So that's good for protecting Elspeth. It jumps everything. You can get attacks in as you please, but then everything you leave back still has flying. So that's really sweet. And -3, there's no ultimate here. The ultimate is the static, honestly. Destroy target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. That's the break glass in case of emergency. What I imagine this doing is staying out, being a doubling season or a parallel lives, and then just plussing or zeroing, depending on if you need to go offense or defense, and that's really annoying. This is a good card.
I mean, that static ability is so nasty. We're paying 5 mana for the doubling seasons of the parallel lives and all that stuff to begin with, so that's the rate we're doing. But this just staples more stuff onto it. I'm very surprised that we have multiple Planeswalkers on this list. As you know, BZ and I are not very high on Planeswalkers because they're at some point just sorcery plus if they die. And the ultimates are usually not what we're trying to get to because it takes too much time. It's good in 1v1, awful in Commander because there's so many points of attack and to damage and to kill it. But this is awesome because the things you're going to be doing is either plussing or zeroing, so it's going to stay at that loyalty. It's a good amount of mana to be paying for this type of effect, and the break glass in case of emergency, that is just defending it if you really need it. End of your next turn. That is nasty.
This seems like a Planeswalker you can reasonably untap with, especially if you play it on turn 5. I think that's very reasonable to untap with this, unless someone straight up kills it. We can't stop that. But this is, we're here for the static. If she had no abilities, people would probably still play this card. If it was just like an enchantment that you could attack and kill, it might still see play. So expect this to be solid. It can win games just by existing. So like with most Planeswalkers, try to kill this if you can. The harder they are to kill, the better we usually rank them.
I feel like also when it comes to Planeswalkers, people are not playing a ton of Planeswalker removal because Planeswalkers are usually kind of bad in Commander.
Yeah.
So they're not playing a lot of the ones that are like destroy target creature or Planeswalker. They're doing the Soul Shatters and all of that. I think Planeswalkers are a little bit sticky, which is kind of like the trade-off of, okay, but you can attack them though.
Yeah, the good ones are sticky. I don't know if I'm playing any card that is like a hero's downfall where it's like destroy a creature or a planeswalker. I think Lethal Scheme does that, so that's amazing. If that's true, I'm always playing Lethal Scheme. So if that's true, that's a nice upside. But like, I find that planeswalkers, like a random one, like Ob Nixilis Reignited, it's gonna +1, draw a card, and then go to 2. Maybe +1, draw a card again if you're lucky, and then just die. Like I like what you say, that they kind of feel like Sorcery Plus, and this one is like an exception to that. Partially because it goes by the War of the Spark rule, where they're like, let's just give you the best thing always.
Yeah, I think that this is an awesome one. I love how they're doing Planeswalkers where it's like, it's still good even if you can't get that to that ultimate, because you're putting a lot of mana into these. You don't want it to just fizzle out and die and you get some sort of mediocre effect immediately. And then you go, wow, if this sticks around for 7 turns, you guys are in trouble.
Right. This, if I untap with this, you guys are in trouble. That's what I want to see on a Planeswalker. That's what makes me really excited. Next, I think we've almost only stayed in Mardu. We haven't even had a green card yet. What is our next one?
Our next one is Within Range at number 6. 3 and a black for an enchantment. When this enchantment enters, you create 2 1/1 red warriors. Whenever you attack, each opponent loses life equal to the number of creatures attacking them.
Oh yeah.
I think that this is super cool because of the fact that it supplements you the tokens immediately, but this is a non-combat, I guess, way to win in these decks that really rely on attacking. Sometimes it's just you can't get a ton of creatures through. They have a big wall of blockers and you're like, okay, well, I'm sending a 1/1 to their death 10 billion times. And you're not really relying on those death triggers, so it's not like you have any Bastion of Remembrances or anything like that. But this plays into the fact that you want to be attacking to begin with. I really like that because it gives you another win con without sacrificing your main plan of attacking.
Yeah, and if you assemble enough creatures, you could do the cute trick of attack with everything on somebody, even if they have a large board to block with. Kill them with the Within Range trigger, and then they can't block anything. Because normally when I'm about to die, I'll block on the way out. Like, I got to disincentivize you somehow. Like, yeah, I'm not just going to let you kill me. I'm going to block to the best of my ability if you attack me. And they can't even do that if you can take them out with that. And I think just having another way in the tokens deck to chip in for non-combat damage in case you don't have an overrun, in case something weird is happening. I do like Within Range a lot, and the only problem I would have had with this is that it feels like it's bad early or it's a do nothing, but they just spot you 2 dudes, so you're still advancing your board and you're still doing exactly what your deck wants to do.
I think this is super cool, and this is just kind of an off note. I saw Reconnaissance went up pretty recently. I don't know if that's like because of this or something else. I know it used to be like a budget bomb. It was like $1 or $2 once it got reprinted in Assassin's Creed. And now I was building an Adeline deck and I saw it up to like 8-10.
Whoa.
I think that's super interesting, and I think it works so well with this. If you are in those 2 colors, that could be great. You can attack people and then you can draw them out before combat ends, and then you get the attack trigger, but you don't have to actually sacrifice your tokens, and then you can leave them back for blockers if you really want to.
That's a really sick synergy. I had not thought of that. That's sweet. And of course, Within Range also goes off with extra combat things. Pretty sure Ishin wants this, right?
Yeah,
Ishin just goes crazy for this card. Within Range is going to be killing you. You gotta remove it. It doesn't. It looks pretty threatening, but you should probably kill it before it's too late. As we move on to our number 5. Mia, you can read this Planeswalker.
This is Ugin, Eye of the Storm, 7 mana for a Planeswalker with Loyalty 7. When you cast this spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, Bauble for instance, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. +2, you gain 3 life and you draw a card. 0, add 3 colorless mana. -11, search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards, exile them, shuffle, until at a turn you can cast those without paying their mana cost. I I think this is super nasty. That minus 11 is awesome, but we're not really working towards that, or maybe we are passively. Actively, though, we can get mana immediately, we can draw a card, we get removal instantly, and then this can be reduced if it's like colorless spells cost X less or whatever, and then if you have anything like Bauble, Soul Rings, etc., you can just start exiling permanents that are colored, which are most of your opponent's stuff.
Ugin is very flashy and exciting to read, and when everyone saw this, they're like, oh my god, like hype overload. I think it might be middling a little bit. I think that in the colorless heavy decks, I'll talk about the decks it's good in, but in those decks, it feels absurd, or it might fall into, like, you probably shouldn't put this card into your deck. This is another instance of, like, we're kind of only here for the static. The 0 is there to fuel the static ability and make Ugin less embarrassing the turn you play him, but like 7 mana to kill a thing, that's bad. We got to make up for that. Ugin can be in these colorless decks where it will make up for it immediately and often, and it will dominate the whole game. But if you just throw us into a random deck expecting it to be closer to Ugin the Spirit Dragon, I think it's going to disappoint. So that's where it kind of ended up like right in the middle of this list. I don't think it's that good in general, but there's ways to build it, and there's plenty of decks that can go in that are not just colorless decks. I think one thing I would be looking out for with Ugin is 2 mana rocks. If you've got a lot of 2 mana rocks in your deck, Ugin's perfect because it helps make them do something in the late game. Not only do they ramp into Ugin, but when you play Ugin, you get the first trigger. That's great. Now you zero. I think zeroing is going to be the mode you do almost every time, honestly, unless you're out of cards. You play a 2 mana rock, exile something, and then with 1 floating and the rock mana, another 2 mana rock, exile something. Once you hit 3 exiles, this card is really, really good.
I think that this is going to be great. There are a few homes that I could see for this. One being obviously the colorless only decks, you know, the Koziliks and stuff. There's also Devoid in here because all of your stuff is going to be colorless, and that's super awesome. And then third, I think it's going to be the artifact decks. If you are running, like, I know Mendicant Core, I run a few more colored permanents than average, but if you're like going in the Portal to Phyrexia Mana Rock way, I think that can be a very cool way to be able to bounce and kill stuff. I also think that with Hullbreaker Horror, as we mentioned earlier, there's the Soul Ring Arcane Signet kind of bounce kill. You can just exile every colored permanent on the board.
That is nice. There are definitely like wombos with Ugin. I mean, there's like maybe Cloudstone Curio you could do something with. That doesn't bounce artifacts, but there's sometimes ways to get around it, and there are colorless creatures, like you said, that are not artifacts. Ugin gets the wheels turning for like brews I could do about it, and I definitely have to play this in a deck. Maybe in my Brutaclad artifact deck. It's just got a lot of artifacts in it. It's a fun static ability to feel like you're just gonna nuke everything that could ever come into your way. And then I probably am never gonna ultimate this. I would say if you keep plussing and gaining 3 and drawing a card, you might be falling behind. Ugin is not a planeswalker that's going to get attacked very easily. He does +9 if you do that. More realistically, I think you're going to play him when you can 0 and get a second trigger. Because the second trigger makes it like, okay, this was worth 7 mana. It's okay. I really hope he doesn't die. If you can protect him, fantastic. You're probably going to win.
Overall, I don't think you're going to get your hands on this card very easily due to hype, due to it maybe being a thing in Tron and Modern and stuff. I think that this card is going to stay sky high for a hot minute.
And I think in some cases you might not need to buy it right now. So wait till it cools off because it's not good in literally every deck that has 5 mana rocks in it. Next, finally, our first green card, number 4, and it is quite the green card. It is Steward of the Harvest. 3 green, 3/3. When this creature enters, exile up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard. Creatures you control have all activated abilities of all land cards exiled with this creature. We're playing a lot of like high bracket 2 and then 3 and 4 Magic. And those brackets all I think contain fetch lands to some degree, whether that be like Verdant Catacombs or just like bad river evolving wilds like Ash Barrens. All that stuff means you're going to get lands in your graveyard pretty easily in a lot of different green decks, whether or not you're a dedicated graveyard deck. This is obviously busted in the lands matter deck. We'll talk about that. But I think the best thing with this is just turning all of your creatures into Sakura Tribuilder off of a fetch land.
Yeah, I think that this card is super cool. If you saw our gameplay on this, you can see Sam putting in so much work with this card. And with your lands, yeah, it could be an Evolving Wilds, it could be a Nykthos, it could be somewhere in between where you're just getting some value off of it, and I still think it's great. Usually, I'm really worried when it comes to things that are like exile, multiple lands from your graveyard and stuff, and I just don't love being able to not grab those back. But I think this is so worth it. I think that this is so worth it. I think this card is awesome.
I mean, even if you just exile Forest, nothing else. Now it says all your creatures tap for green. You didn't give up anything. You exiled a forest out of your graveyard. And that's already a pretty strong ability. We've seen it on Elvish Chorus, Sentinel Hierophants, Cryptolith Rite. And I think all those cards are pretty good. And this is seems to me like it's better than most of those. It's better than like Sentinel Hierophants, and it's got so much. The upside is ridiculous.
I think the fact that it also says 3 lands too makes it so that you can mix and match, and I think that is what really saved this card. I think that if it was Exile Forest, that might be a little bit dicier because it's like, I don't know if I'm going to have like a forest in my graveyard. I don't know if I'll have that. But in especially in the not so dedicated lands matters graveyard deck type things. But with the ability to target 3 lands, you're like, okay, well, maybe this turns into a fetch land. Maybe this turns into a regular. Maybe this turns into a Phyrexian Tower. I don't know. This is going to be awesome.
This also, I think, people, maybe if you're underestimating it, it doesn't say non-token. All of your creatures do this. So if you have a land that makes tokens for some reason, I can't even think of one. I don't know, Field of the Dead? Someone on YouTube, on one of our other videos, commented my favorite thing that I now have to do, and I have to share with you. It's, you have Field of the Dead in play, and you use Steward of the Harvest. I don't know how this is all working, by the way, but you're exiling Thespian Stage, which you have to put in your graveyard somehow. Anyway, once that's there, now all of your creatures can pay 2 and tap to just turn into Field of the Dead, which I'm pretty sure doesn't make them creatures anymore, which is ridiculous. And now, since you have more Field of the Deads, every time you play a land, each one gives you a new creature, which has the chance to turn into Field of the Dead. And that's actually true with anything in Thespian Stage. So Thespian Stage is probably one of the better synergy lands for Steward of the Harvest. You can keep making all of your creatures, you just shield them from the harsh reality of being on the board. Put them in the safe zone, the land slot, and then just make them the best land in play.
I think it's a little tough with that because you need a haste enabler too, because you need to tap Thespian Stage
They'll be
to
around.
make your new
What are
stuff.
you going to kill a zombie token?
Look, I don't know. When they can turn into Field of the Dead, yeah, I'm probably killing the zombie tokens and a bunch of other stuff while I still can.
No, let me do the thing. Let me do this. This card has jank applications. It looks really strong. There's a plenty of this is the optimal card to play too. So this feels like it hits every box. It doesn't feel broken. It doesn't feel like a super staple. It just feels like one of the coolest cards I've seen in a while.
Are you putting it in Belladros?
I don't know. Maybe because he makes all those pest tokens. And I do have Thespian Stage, so if somebody blows up Thespian Stage,
I'm going Field of the Dead immediately.
we're going for it. I think I have to live the dream at least once, or I'll be really sad.
The next card is a card that I'm playing in CEDH, but I think it's so nasty that it might not be played anywhere else because it's that good. It's number 3. It's Clarion Conqueror. 2 and a white for a 3/3 flyer. Activated abilities of artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers can't be activated. You thought Dread and Linvala was bad with
Yes.
activated creatures? What if I also just turned off your mana rocks and your planeswalkers?
I think Dread and Linvala is an interesting one because we've been pretty high on it for a while.
It's awesome.
Literally, actually, since the first video you ever did with the channel, we were pretty high on Dread and Linvala. And it's starting to rise up now in price.
It's because I've kicked your butt with it so many times on camera.
On every different channel, you can see me lose to Dread and Linvala, whether it's CDH or casual. That's a sweet ability to have. I also think Collector Oof is a ridiculously strong magic card that can turn off entire decks by itself. And this is 1 more mana for a better creature. It's a 3/3 flyer, but it just shuts off everything. I think the only reason you wouldn't play this card is because it shuts off too much. You can't play it in your deck full of mana dorks because it shuts them off. But if you don't have a slew of our mana rocks or creatures that tap for mana or have weird activated abilities, and no one really plays that many planeswalkers, then you just play this card and it's kind of obnoxious. They just have to kill it. And in some cases, their way to kill it is an artifact with an ability, or is a creature, or is Obnixilus Reignited, which they should cut from their deck.
Yeah, it just really turns off all the elf decks, sorry. And
Elf decks are dead to this.
Everything that the artifact decks, this is a really nasty card, and I'm very excited to be playing it in the higher powered, but it is one of those higher powered cards that you're really rocking at, and I think it's that good. I think that we're not going to be seeing this in bracket 2, bracket 3. I think it's going to be a no holds barred card like Collector Oof. I feel like that has weeded itself out of the more casual formats, and I feel like this is going to be like that too, which is also why I think it might stay budget, because people go, ooh, that's a little nasty, don't you think?
It's pretty gnarly. It is a really strong card. The only reason you wouldn't see it as much is because maybe not the most enjoyable card. It's not as bad as Drannith Magistrate, but you'll feel it when this card is in play, and it's just so good that you won't even see it as much as you would if this was a tournament world. But I have to remind you that if you want to buy this Magic card or any of the other Magic cards, I would use Card Kingdom, and if you want to buy supplies, you're going to save 15% with code
Mia B-Day.
Beezy Birthday.
Nope.
Beezy B-Day, or Mia B-Day if you like her better. But if you like me better, Beezy B-Day, either one of those codes will save you 15% on Magic supplies on Card Kingdom, I would recommend saving some money.
You should use the code MIABDay because I actually remembered my own code, unlike BZ.
I said BZBday.
Yeah, okay. Number 2 is another green card, and the last green card on the list, it's Nature's Rhythm. X green for a sorcery. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put on the battlefield, then shuffle. But you can harmonize it for X, green. That is a lot of green. But you can reduce that cost with Harmonize, and you can cast it from your graveyard.
Yeah, if you have a big creature like the one you search up, then Harmonize will only cost green for another creature that has a solid amount of mana into it. I think I was low on this. I don't remember if we talked about it too much in the set review. Did we talk about it in the set review?
I think we might have touched upon it very quickly, and if we didn't, I think that we should have.
I think this card's pretty sweet. But yeah, I was like, oh, do we even put this on the top 10? And you're like, I don't know, this card seems really good. And I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, Finale is a great card. Yeah. That card, I think, is a little bit better than this because it has some different things.
Yeah, and the trample and stuff.
You can find cards out of your graveyard and it can give +10/+10 haste if you pay 1,000,000 mana. But, like, if this just said Flashback, X, green, that would be pretty strong. A second use out of your Chord of Calling variant is great. And the Harmonize says you can reduce the cost. So it's never going to cost that much more than 4 green pips plus maybe 1 or 2 if you're going to go find something big. So this is as good as the best thing in your deck. If you've got 50 creatures in your deck or even 40, this is a solid toolbox card. You pay a little bit of a premium, 5 mana for a 3 mana Lauren to blow up that Ristic Study is a little annoying, but the fact that it's anything makes it the utility of it go way up. So don't sleep on this card like we kind of did.
Yeah, I think that this is very cool. I think that in green anyways, you're going to be able to tap a bunch of stuff, whether that's the 4/4 Beast token that you got from Landfall or, the giant thing that you tutored up. I think that you're going to be able to reduce that Harmonize cost pretty easily. And if you just want to get into your graveyard so you can reduce it, you just find something very small with it. You find, you pay 3 green, you find your, Allosaurus Shepherd or something like that. You can even find a Mana Dork if that's still what you have, and then cast it for reduce stuff if you have a big board to begin with.
Right, and if you mill it or discard it, it's kind of like you drew an extra card. You have access to this thing, so maybe graveyard decks are in on this. How tricky do you think the green will be? Obviously, this is a slam dunk in mono green, where that's might as well be colorless, but how do you feel about like 2 colors or even 3? I don't know if we go past that, but
I don't know. I feel like fixing lately has been so good, and I feel like with green, you have the best fixing, whether that's through getting the best mana dorks, or you're getting things like Elven Chorus or Jaheira, or you're finding Yavi Maya. I feel like if you have to do quadruple pips, green is your best way to do it and the easiest way to do it in any of the colors.
I was saying maybe not more than 3 colors. Maybe more than 3 colors. If you're playing a 4-color deck, this is still a 2 green spell. It costs 2 green to cast it. Go find your best thing. And then in the late game, when you have like a World Tree, or when you have some like a Chromatic Lantern, if you play that card still, or if you just have 4 lands that make green, which is not crazy like you said, because green kind of dominates the mana bases of those 3, 4, 5 color decks. This is recastable. Maybe this is just a great card in green decks, huh?
Yeah, I think that just in general, it's really easy to be able to get those 4 green pips because all of the lands that we're finding, 3 Visits, Nature's Lore, those have to be forests. Skyshroud Claim, those are going to be forests. If you're finding anything with those, and then if you're playing Mana Dorks, it's like it's either untapped land and it's going to be like a pretty green land because you needed to pay 1 to get this out to begin with, or you're playing something like Landwearer Elves, where it's going to only tap for green to begin with. I don't think it's that tough to be able to hit those 4 green pips.
Or you've used Steward of the Harvest, and you have Nykthos in your graveyard, and you exile it, and then all your creatures tap for 1,000 green.
Sure, that also works. I think there are a lot of ways to be able to play this, and if it's in your graveyard and you have that information, you can kind of ramp up and try and get those green first. It's not kind of like a surprise where you're like, oh, like I found this in my hand and I have to pay 4 green for my hand. That would be the worst.
Yeah, keep an eye on the best creatures in your deck. This card gets way better if you have a Craterhoof Behemoth in your deck. This card gets way better if you've got some kind of like Consecrated Sphinx that you would love to have at all points, as long as you have the mana for it. Like having a second copy of those things for 2 more mana is usually pretty awesome. If your deck is all cards that cost less than 10 cents, maybe this isn't that great unless you have a linchpin card that you want that is like, you've built all of your synergy around. But we're going to go to number 1. I don't know if it was a doubt for us. This thing
so
looks
good.
ridiculous. I'm going to lose to Afterlife from the Loam quite a bit, I think. It's 5 black for a sorcery with Delve, so it's not really 5 black. For each player, choose up to 1 target creature card in that player's graveyard. Put those cards onto the battlefield under your control, and they're zombies in addition to their other types. This card gives me Breach the Multiverse vibes, but I will say that Breach always costs 7, but also always hits 4 things. Afterlife, the only question on this for me is how often will you get 4 targets. But if you're paying 3 mana for it, how often do you need 4? You're going to get your best thing for 3 mana. That's the floor of this.
I think this is sick. I think that with Afterlife, we have played it only against it and with it in the pre-con decks. Maybe 1 or 2 other ones in a deck I'm testing right now, and it's still good. We're not getting things like Crater Hoof in it. We're not getting combo pieces with it. We're still just getting random stuff out of pre-cons, and it's still slapped getting that 4-for-1 value. And I think it's very easy to reduce this even down to 4 mana, even if you can't exile all of those cards from the graveyard. And at that point, I'm still happy to get my best thing and 2 other things, and maybe a mana dork, maybe something that doesn't really matter. It's okay because I'm paying that. I'm not paying a premium for it. Breach of the Multiverse is one of my favorite cards. I think it's really hard to cast at times. It's definitely a late game card. This I can just fire off mid game if I just have played enough. Like, it's the sorceries or enough things have died, and I just go, okay, I'll get that back. That seems pretty cool. That seems awesome.
Yeah, you're gonna get back a thing that costs 6, 7, or 8 for 3 mana. So you've already paid 3 to get 6, and then you're gonna get back their best thing that dies. And the later into the game you play this, the cheaper it is and the better it is. It's just a 4-for-1. It feels like a 4-for-1, and I think, you know what this goes really well with?
What?
Cards we were already playing, free removal, Snuff Out, Lethal Scheme, and then our favorites like a Cursed Marauder, taking out a non-token creature from everybody, Soul Shatter, Flare of Malice. You scoop their best thing off the field, and then you play this for literally like 3 mana.
Yeah, the Delve is so good on this. I think it makes it so castable. Even, like, it was just so, it's hard to stomach the 8 mana, but then with the Delve, it's so easy. And then it also triggers things if you care about that high casting cost that some cards really do.
Yeah, I mean, this card looks better than like Rise of the Dark Realms, looks better than Sepulchral Primordial. It's so much more castable in that it is castable early. Like, it's not a mulligan. If you draw it in your opening hand, you go, oh, I've got a fetch land and I'm going to dredge this Life from the Loam. Okay, I guess I'll think about what my best creature to reanimate's going to be.
Yeah, make sure you can fill your graveyard, or you're playing a lot of those, you know, kind of instant dies and
Street
comes
Wraith.
back.
Get Street Wraith in for this.
Of course, Street Wraith, the slam dunk into every deck.
Every BZ deck.
But I think that this is very castable, and if your deck's built around it properly, you will see why this is number 1 for us.
I don't even think it's that expensive right now. Go get one and put it in your best black deck, and it's going to be ridiculous.
But if you want to see our thoughts on anything else in Dragonstorm, including the precons, which you should check it out right here.